Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Demon Slayer. I can create my own breathing. Chapter 21. In order to fill the gap for the stone he split, Gensoda went to the mine next to Mount Samagiri to transport back a suitable rock. Although he didn't find such a big one, he was ready to repay it with several small pebbles, and he could also exercise his strength by the way. Late at night, a huge rock moved on the mountain, making everyone who saw it think they were seeing a ghost. Little did they know that there was a handsome young man carrying it under the rock. Sweat was dripping from Yuan Soda's head, but his breathing was still steady. This was the 11th time he had carried it in the past few days. The brothers and sisters in the back mountain also appeared to be particularly diligent under the stimulation of Yuan Soda. The more Yuan Zhangtai carried, the more they chopped. The more they chopped, the fewer stones there were. The fewer stones Yuan Kangtai carried, the more they chopped. So the more stones you carry, the fewer stones you carry. Hey, hey, hey. Gensoda walked towards the mountain carrying the stone, but he didn't know that there was an evil ghost following him. The evil ghost's name is Tomato Minoru. He was a bandit on the mountain at first. After turning into an evil ghost, he gradually likes to make a living by hunting woodcutters who go up the mountain to cut trees, or young girls who dig wild vegetables. He was very cautious because he felt that there was an unusual aura on that mountain. This was an instinct developed after countless life and death fights. There were ghost swordsmen in that mountain who could kill him at will. Even after becoming a ghost, Tomoto Minoru is still cautious. Because of this, he can survive well around the ghost swordsman life. These days, he has been eyeing this young man who has been carrying stones. At the beginning, he wanted to take action, but he looked a little wary when he saw the knife on the young man's waist. And seeing the young man carrying such a heavy stone up and down every day, he kept silent for fear of being pretended to be a pig and eaten by the tiger. But today he couldn't bear it anymore. Fresh flesh and blood was right in front of him. He had been hiding for a long time since the mermaid ghosts and ape ghosts he knew were killed by unknown ghost swordsmen. As if God had taken pity on him, the terrifying knife that the young man had been carrying on his waist was replaced by a bamboo knife for some reason. His desire for fresh flesh and blood gradually overcame his caution. He has been following Yuan Soda, and the reason why he has not been discovered is because of his vampire technique. Vampire art secret. Just like the name, this vampire technique can greatly reduce human beings' perception of him as an individual. He had been following Minamoto Soda for half an hour, but the boy still looked like a young man hunting hogweed on the mountain, enjoying himself and not noticing the danger behind him. Gensoda's feet suddenly slipped, and the rope pulling the stone behind him suddenly broke. Snapped. With a crisp sound, the rock fell to the ground and rolled rapidly down the mountain. The weight like a hydraulic press crushed the evil ghost named Tomo Minoru, crushing him into a mural. True zip file compressed package. Nozomi Tomo did not expect this scene. His keen escape ability saved his life at the best moment. Before the boulder hit his head, he stretched his neck by more than 10 centimeters, just in time to avoid it, crushed by boulders. Oh, no, why is the rope loose? Master will curse me to death if he sees this. The young man's crisp voice rang out as he chased the boulder down the mountain. The opportunity has come, Minoru Tomo suddenly thought. When Minamoto Soda ran to him, he would definitely bite this hateful young man to death. The neck bounces like a spring. Tomoto Minoru opened his mouth wide open to Gensoda, and the fangs in his mouth flashed a chill in the night. A small sound of click sounded, like a key opening a door lock. Gensoda suddenly felt a sense of danger, so he instinctively swung his bamboo knife, and the evil spirit's head was divided from the middle, too. Damn it, what the hell, it scared me. He didn't think about how he died until he died. It was clear that the boy's hand was just a wooden knife. Gensoda jumped when he saw a head suddenly coming out. In response to the emergency, the bamboo sword at his waist was unsheathed and slashed in one go. In Minamoto Soda's slightly confused eyes, he saw the evil ghost's body disappear into ashes, leaving a black bead on the ground. He picked it up, kicked it into his pocket, and continued chasing the fallen stone without even glancing at that place. Damn, I'm so lucky. I can kill a ghost easily when I carry a rock. This evil ghost is so considerate. When Minamoto Soda came back again carrying stones, it was already late at night, but the sound of gold and stone colliding one after another could still be heard from the back mountain, which was obviously the sound of the senior brothers training hard. There are still 3 days before the selection starts. During this period, Gensoda improved Makomo's water breathing, making her breathing mainly focus on agility. Gensoda gave Makomo his speed breathing skills. Then he showed her the fusion of water breathing and speed breathing, and how to use it after the fusion. He also gave her the third style of breathing of speed. Minamoto Soda also thoughtfully reduced the killing power of the third style. Skill. What is left is a fast-moving, close to flickering effect. As for the transformation of Sabito's breathing method, Minamoto Soda gave 2 plans based on his character. One is the combination of water breathing and speed breathing, which is mainly life-saving like Makomo. The other is the second move that Minamoto Soda realized last time about the breath of thunder that was not shown in front of others, and the combination with the breath of water. After Sabito made it clear that he liked moves that were extremely destructive, a fusion move was born. Fusion Breath Thunder Water Ball Surge Electric Field. When Sabito used this move, a circle of purple balls suddenly appeared around him, and the water flow and thunder and lightning formed a field-like existence. He hit the rock, and there was a violent roar. Even though Sabito's face was covered with dust, he could not hide his excitement, because a big hole was blown out of the back of the rock in front of him. It wasn't just Minamoto Soda's ability to create his own breathing that shocked the old man greatly. He has met many such geniuses. Changing other people's breathing methods is a genius among geniuses. After the original swordsman created the breathing method and passed it down, those swordsmen who changed the basic breathing method to the 5 basic schools of water, thunder, fire, rock, and wind were all the same. An amazingly talented person. In his eyes, Minamoto Soda was not only able to stand alongside those people, but even surpass them. This move has already taken shape in the field. Even though he has delved deeply into the breathing of water, he has learned a lot from it. Unlike the two of them, Giyu rarely rejected Minamoto Soda. It was not that he had any objections to Minamoto Soda, but that the breathing of water was particularly suitable for him, and forcibly modifying the breathing method would easily make him lose more than he gained. Tomioka Giyu's water breathing has made a qualitative breakthrough after these days of hard practice and the tremendous pressure that Gensoda brought to him. He can now use the top 10 moves taught to him by Master Linlong more skillfully. He believed that even if he did not participate in Gensoda's breathing transformation plan, he could still pass the teacher's training with his original water breathing. Today is the last day of the assessment, and it is also the day before the selection begins. Tomorrow the 4 of them will go to participate in the selection in Tengshi Mountain. Teacher Linlong put on a Tengu mask. The red mask isolated his slightly gentle face, and his whole temperament changed. This meant that he would definitely conduct the assessment without mercy today. Are you 4 ready? Master Linlong looked around. The 4 people who were about to undergo the assessment stood upright. Ready. A uniform voice sounded, representing their confidence. Then who should we start with? Master Linlong said. Sabito stood up. He was wearing a yellow-green haori with pine needles today, and his expression was different from the usual laughter. I was the first to come to Samagiri Mountain. Since you all call me senior brother, then from now on let me start first. Jung. A sharp voice sounded, and Sabito pulled out his knife and faced the rock as tall as a man in front of him. Yes, what he wanted to challenge was not an ordinary rock, but a rock that was close to the largest in size, and he thought he could do it. The 3 people standing beside him took a few steps back so as not to block Sabito's power. Sabito closed his eyes and took a sudden breath of air. The airflow around him also changed direction at this time. His body began to heat up, and veins popped out in the hand holding the handle of the knife. Water breathing. A ray of aqua blue light began to surround him, and then he took another deep breath. The purple light threads climbed up his body and gradually merged with the aqua blue light. New Fusion Breath Thunder Water Ball Surge Electric Field. A purple blue light ball appeared next to him, and the huge force caused the airflow next to it to change its direction and rush towards his domain. Sabito's gray eyes now had a faint purple tint, and his eyes suddenly solidified. He raised the sword that was holding the domain high and then swung it down hard. His voice seemed to be cut open at this moment. Boom! There was a loud noise, and the smooth round stone cracked from the middle. No. It was more like an explosion. Under the huge impact, various parts of the rock suffered devastating blows. He wiped the unshown sweat on his head and looked at Master Linlong expectantly. Well done. Master Linlong is not stingy in praising his students, especially the children he picked up, who are like successors in his heart. Sabito, pass the test. Sabito put away the knife and raised his fist, cheering with joy. The three people on the side, Yuan Soda, applauded him. Next, Makomo. Master Linlong's voice sounded again. Yuan Soda gave her a cheering look, indicating that she would be able to do it. Sabito returned to his original position, and Makomo picked up the knife and stood on the field. She exhaled slightly to calm her nervousness. She whispered to herself, "Come on Makomo, you can do it. Don't let down the expectations of Master and Soda." Makomo holds the knife in both hands and faces the rock, which is smaller than Sabito. She knows that she is not the type with strong strength, and her requirements for herself are not that high. There was a brief rapid breathing sound, and power burst out from Makomo's petite body. Water-breathing fusion type 3 cuts of flowing water. Makomo jumped up high on his toes, and the blade collided with the rock 3 times quickly. When she fell, the rock split in two and fell to the ground in a cloud of dust. Wow, Makomo is so awesome. He has made great progress in the past few days. Gen Soda clapped his hands hard, cheering for Makomo's passing, because among them, only Makomo had the most difficulty in this level. Her strength was too small and she was not suitable for such high-intensity chopping. But with her efforts, she still completed the task. Master Linlong also nodded to her approvingly. Tomioka Giyu came on the stage. He looked particularly calm, with his black hair flowing in the wind. Breath of water shape of 4 tide of strike. The blade of the sword struck the rock several times with a stream of water as thick as a horse, and the rock broke with a sound. It all happened very quickly, and Tomioka Giyu passed the test in a flash of lightning. Master Linlong applauded him. Before Gensoda, Tomioka Giyu was the most talented swordsman he had ever seen, and his talent in understanding the breath of water was unparalleled. Tomioka Giyu put away his sword and bowed slightly to Master Linlong, then stepped back and looked at Gensoda. At this time, they all turned their eyes to the boy. Because of his arrival, many changes had taken place in Sagiri Mountain. What they didn't know was that the gears of fate were misaligned because of Gensoda's arrival. Avoiding their tragedy in another timeline also makes Tomioka Giyu seem less taciturn now. Yuan Soda smiled slightly and walked up with a knife. He picked a rock that was larger than the last time. Master Linlong excavated and polished this rock, and it took 2 people to move the rock here. This shows the weight of the rock. But in Minamoto Soda's opinion, this is how his final trial should be. If it's too relaxed, he won't feel too much pressure. This time Gensoda wanted to test his limits. He prepared himself to concentrate, and the whistling wind sounded in this space. Gensoda seemed to be sucking all the air into his lungs. His chest was bulging high, but his heart was beating like a drum. Dull and powerful. White air threads, blue water flow, and purple lightning all converged on him. Yuan Soda's deep voice sounded, "Stand back a little, I'm going to use my ultimate move." Everyone was seen retreating, and Yuan Kangtai completely released his sword. At this time, there was not even a cloud in the endless sky, but at this time, everyone watching the knife from behind heard the sound of thunder. Boom! A muffled thunder exploded in this space, making it impossible to tell whether it came from the sky or from Gensoda. The huge rocks fell apart in an instant, and some pieces of rubble even exploded towards everyone, but they were all intercepted by Gensotai. At this time, he still had enough energy to catch the rocks that were flying around. As if a detonator had blown it from the inside, the huge rock was split into pieces by the knife, as if a bomb had been thrown. Breath of Thunder Mixed Domain God of Punishment Thunder. At this moment, Rinlong Sakanji suddenly realized in his mind that the opportunity to resolve the 1,000-year confrontation between humans and ghosts seemed to lie in the handsome young man in front of him. Lin Longzhou stood in front of the mountain and waved goodbye to them for the last time. He still wore the red Tengu mask because he didn't want the children to see the tears on his face under the mask. As a breeder, he sent away 12 children for selection. But none of them joined the Demon Slayer squad, and the old man knew that they all died in Fujirai Mountain. He is already old and has no way to avenge them, but this time, Lin Longzhou saw hope in Yuan Soda for the first time. He silently prayed to them in his heart, hoping that this time the selection would go smoothly. On the mountainside of Tengshi Mountain. Wow, Yuan Kangtai and others couldn't help but exclaimed. In their field of vision, the entire mountainside was covered with wisteria flowers, like a purple ocean. They slowed down and walked up the stairs to the pavilion. They saw many people gathered in the pavilion. Makomo explained to several people in a low voice, this time of year is the selection competition for the Demon Slayer Corps. Here is the assessment to become a demon swordsman. Butterfly House, which is the medical team where your sister currently works, and logistics. There are other selection methods for other jobs like the team. Makomo paused and said, the wisteria flowers on the mountain are in full bloom all year round. Most evil spirits hate this smell and cannot stay on the mountainside, so the Demon Slayer Corps uses this place as a selection venue. Makomo, you are so awesome. You are like a mobile encyclopedia. Where did you get all this knowledge? Gensoda praised her. A blush appeared on Makomo's face, and she whispered, Master Linlong told me these. Tomioka Gyu gently tugged the corner of Gensoda's clothes and motioned him to look in the middle. Under the wisteria tree stood two little girls who looked exactly the same. They wore decorations made of wisteria flowers on their heads and wore purple kimonos. It was obvious at a glance that they were the owners of this place. The two girls spoke at the same time, their childish voices spreading throughout the area. Thank you all for coming to tonight's final selection of the Demon Slayer team. When all the people turned their attention here, they continued, on this Vine Mountain, ghosts who were captured alive by the Demon Slayers are imprisoned. The ghosts cannot leave here, because the mountainside to the foot of the mountain is covered with these kinds of things that the ghosts hate, of wisteria flowers. But there are no wisteria flowers up here. You need to stay on the mountain for 7 days. Those who survive successfully can pass this trial. The two girls bowed to them, good luck to you all. At this time, an irritating voice sounded, hey, 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 those two kids, where are my Nichiren blades? Give me a Nichiren blades quickly. How can I kill ghosts without a good knife? The speaker was a young man with black hair and blue eyes. He had thick eyebrows and wore a green magatama pendant around his neck. His expression seemed very impatient. Do you want me to sacrifice my life for you without giving you a knife? The black-haired girl said expressionlessly, I'm sorry, sir. Only ghost swordsmen who have passed the trial can get the opportunity to select the ore. We don't provide knives now. Veins popped up on the young man's forehead, and he pointed with a hint of anger at Minamoto Soda who was watching the show. Why does that brat have Nichiren blades and say you don't provide them? Gensauda, who was eating melon quietly on the side, looked confused. He didn't know why he ate melon while eating it. The girl with white hair said, we do not provide that gentleman's knife. If you are interested, you can ask that gentleman yourself. It is getting late, so please climb the mountain early. After hearing this explanation, the black-haired man snorted disdainfully, and then strode towards the direction of Yuan Kangtai and the others. Hey kid, let me lend you the knife. I'll return it to you when we get down the mountain. The young man stretched out his hand to pull out the knife from Yuan Kangtai's waist, but Yuan Kangtai not only did not stop him, but looked very interested. There was a crisp sound, and a red mark appeared on the young man's hand. Sabito hit the young man with the undrawn scabbard. The young man retracted his hand with a cry of pain, his face started to turn red, and he stared at Sabito who was drawing the knife fiercely. Do you want to die, kid? Sabito put away the knife and looked indifferent. Did your parents tell you to ask people's names first when you meet them? Don't always call them brats. Who are you looking down on? The young man became particularly angry at this time. Veins popped up on his arms. He reached out and pressed the handle of the knife, as if he was going to kill someone in the next moment. Makomo's whole body tensed up when she saw this scene. She felt that if there was a conflict later, she would definitely be faster than this young man. Tomioka Gyu also stood silently in front of Gensoda, staring at the young man in front of him who seemed to be mentally ill, although he did not think that the man in black in front of him could hurt Gensoda. Gensoda took the initiative to take a step forward, protecting the three of Sabito and the others behind him. The young man's body was like an electric current passing through his muscles, as if he had encountered some terrible evil spirit. He looked at the boy in front of him who had not even touched the knife, and realized that he seemed to be the core of the team. Hello, my name is Gensoda. I hope you can teach me more in the Demon Slayer Corps in the future. Gensoda smiled and extended his hand to the young man in front of him. Although this stupid-looking young man came to get his sword, he did not give anyone a warning, because outside they represented his teacher, and they were all members who contributed to slaying ghosts. If you think you can tolerate such a small thing, you can tolerate it. The young man stared at the white fox mask hanging around Gensoda's waist and smiled contemptuously. Who do I think I am? It turns out to be the useless disciple taught by the previous useless Shueju. As he spoke, he began to count on his fingers. 1, 2, 3, 12 useless disciples. Ha 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 ha, that old man taught so many, and none of them passed the test. He is really a waste. Let me think about it. The young man pointed his finger at them again. 11, 12, 13, ah. A scream rang out. That was the voice of a black-haired young man. The finger he pointed at Gensoda and the others was bent at a strange angle. Gensoda waved his hand expressionlessly. If what he faced at this time was not a person but a ghost, the distance would not be as simple as breaking a finger. He actually dared to insult Master Linlong. If he hadn't taken into account that they were in the process of being selected for the Demon Slayer Corps, he would have really wanted to chop this idiot to death with a knife. He stretched out his hand to stop everyone who wanted to continue to attack. The young man's insulting words made the always good-tempered Makomo angry, and the stupid hair on his head jumped in anger. Tomioka Giyu looked at the young man indifferently. If you are lucky enough to pass this time, I will challenge you to a challenge, and you will be responsible for your life and death. Gensoda looked at the young man who was covering his fingers with a pained expression and showed a murderous smile. Say your name. The young man almost squeezed out 2 words, Kaigaku, from between his teeth. Kaigaku looked at the 3 of them with a look of resentment. He realized that he had encountered a hard problem this time, which he could not afford now, so he decided to find an opportunity to retaliate against them in the future. Kaigaku, see you later, try not to die on the mountain. Yuan Soda led everyone to the mountain. As night falls, the sounds of insects gradually begin to sound in the grass on the mountain, and a few sporadic fireflies flicker in the night sky, providing the only illumination for people going up the mountain. There was a soft, jung, sound, and an evil ghost whose arms were covered with spikes died once again under Gensoda's knife, and then a black bead exploded. Yuan Soda remembered that the last time he asked Teacher Linlong about the use of such beads, the old man was vague and just said that it could probably restore qi and blood to the body. And he didn't dare to try it casually in his usual training, and continued to keep the beads in his arms, and the old man said that there was no such record in history, and only the evil ghosts who died in the hands of Gensoda seemed to be able to keep the beads. At this time, Makomo's slightly complaining voice rang out, Soda, you're like this again. You killed the evil ghost instantly at the first sight. Even if we follow you, it won't have any training effect. Yuan Soda scratched his head and said sheepishly, well, I'm not afraid of you getting hurt. There will be more opportunities for killing ghosts in the future. It's important to pass the assessment first. That's wrong. Makomo rarely agreed with Gensoda's point of view. Without this training, would we be able to follow you all the time when killing ghosts? In that case, what's the point of taking the assessment? It will also bring a lot of pressure to you. Makomo's little face wrinkled up, obviously dissatisfied with Gensoda's chauvinism. Sabito also came over with a knife at this time. Makomo is right, you can't protect us forever. Why don't we separate here and finally gather at the top of the mountain, and we have learned a lot from you, this place there's not much danger. Tomioka Giyu also nodded slightly in agreement. During this period, he was like a sword that had been tempered many times, and his whole person seemed calm and restrained. In this case, let's separate as you said, Minamoto Soda said. Then he looked at the 3 of them seriously. But you have to remember that if you really encounter an evil ghost that you can't fight against, you should try your best to escape. Survival is the most important thing. If it really comes to a situation where you can't escape, you should make more noise. I will rush back as soon as I hear it. After all 3 people agreed, they left here in a few flashes. Gensoda watched the direction Makomo left and walked slowly towards the top of the mountain. He was confident that he did not have to avoid ghost attacks like others. The ghosts that blocked him on this road would die one by one, under the knife. In the dense forest where Gensoda could not see, an evil spirit in gray clothes lowered his head and reported to the figure on the wooden post. "Are you sure it's him?" A majestic voice came from above. The evil ghost in gray clothes raised his head. "I'm sure. My vampire technique allowed me to sense the scent of Saruso, Mermaid, and Noritomo on him. I'm sure, sir, that all 3 of your men died in his hands." The figure on the wooden stake stood up and threw the bloody head in his hand to the waiting evil spirits. The head with a frightened expression before death was cut into pieces by the evil ghosts. Apparently he was very satisfied with the fresh food. The ground was covered with broken arms, thighs, and broken knives. It seemed that someone had carried out a massacre here. The black figure stretched his body to his heart's content. Let's go meet that boy for a while and see if my strength can go up a few places after eating him." There was a hint of joy in the colorful eyes, as if cheering for the coming food, and several terrifying numbers were reflected in the pupils. Tomioka Giyu kept running towards the east, which is the place with the easiest access to sunlight. He wanted to get there before the sun rose, and he decided to spend his 7 days there. In fact, Tomioka Giyu was not as calm as he appeared. He remembered that when he was 13 years old, he first became a disciple of Master Lintaki and became friends with Sabito, who was also strangers to him. While training with Sabito in Mount Sagiri, he often said the depressing words, "It would be better to die on my sister's behalf," and Sabito slapped him in the face. Tomioka Giyu touched the left cheek and smiled lightly. He remembered what Sabito said to him at that time, "If you say such things again, I will break up with you. You must live well with your sister's hope. You cannot die in her place. You must avenge her." His expression became determined. Sabito was right, escaping was a sign of cowardice, and what he had to do was to cut off the head of the person behind all this. The howling wind blew before him. "There's a situation." Tomioka Giyu immediately grasped the handle of the knife and slashed to the left with a clang. A touch of blood flowed down his blade, and he hit the evil ghost. This evil spirit had a white horn on its head and its eyes were red. It stared at Tomioka Giyu like a rattlesnake. "You must be that boy's companion. Our leader has spoken. He wants to take your body back and let him. That kid should also feel what it feels like to lose a companion." Tomioka Giyu's pupils shrank slightly when he heard what the evil ghost said. He didn't know where the words came from. His instinct told him that the rules this time seemed to have been changed by a strange ghost. He shook his head not to think about this, and pointed the tip of the knife at the evil spirit. Water breathing begins with the first pose. West. Sabito leaned against a big tree. He had just saved a boy who was crying. He seemed to be frightened by the evil ghost's immortality. At that time, he was leaning on a tree to rest, and watched the young man being chased by the ghost jump out of the tree and cut off the ghost's head with a knife. The young man glanced at him and ran down the mountain in a panic without saying thank you. Wanting to remind him that there might be more evil spirits under the mountain, Sabito looked at the retreating figure and sighed silently. "Forget it, take care of yourself first." After observing that there was no living thing around, Sabito wanted to take a rest. Bang! The tree trunk shook. Sabito was startled and instantly entered a fighting state. He looked for the source of the sound and looked down to see an evil spirit holding a baseball bat hitting the tree trunk, causing a huge dent in the tree trunk. Sabito jumped down quickly. The evil ghost showed a ferocious smile. "The leader asked for your boy's body by name. I wonder if the leader will blame me if you died under my baseball bat without a complete body." "What the hell are you talking about? I can't understand a word of it. Can you speak human language?" "Oh, I forgot, you are not human, ha ha ha." Sabito mocked him mercilessly, pressing the hilt of the knife with one hand. Aqua blue spheres began to form around him. Fusion breath thunder water ball surge electric field. Near the water source, Makomo was dipping her silk into the water and wiping her face carefully. After traveling for so long, she was so dusty that she didn't want to be like this the next time she saw Gensoda. The light in the water began to slowly get darker, and it seemed like something was about to break out of the water. When Makomo didn't react, a black shadow jumped out and pounced on the unsuspecting Makomo. Breathing sounded, and the evil ghost nearby heard this inaudible sound. The girl who should have been unable to dodge ran away 3 meters away from him like a broken frame, dodging this fatal blow. Makomo panted slightly, beads of sweat gradually appeared on her head. She was completely unaware of this blow. In a short period of time, she could only use breath of speed once. Without any preparation time, she only moved 3 meters and stopped. That's the way to fight with evil spirits. He won't wait until you are completely ready before taking action. Surprise is their favorite method. They are insidious, cunning, and kill with one blow. This also allowed Makomo to see their true colors. At the beginning, a few people watched Yuan Kang kill one ghost after another easily, and they also thought that this ghost was nothing more than that. It wasn't until this moment that she understood the huge gap between them and Minamoto Soda. Makomo slowly pulled out the knife. Her thin spike-like knife was like a twisting snake. This was a soft sword specially made for her by Master Linlong to take care of her. Although this sword is not suitable for the kind of powerful cutting skills, it has flexibility in stabbing, drawing, and winding that ordinary swords cannot match. Makomo began to use her breathing method, and white air flow was poured into her body. As the blood flow speed increased, her vision became clear. Breath of Water 1 type modified, dazzling water dance. The soft knife kept waving, bringing up water blades that would not die in the air. While tapping the ground with his toes, Makomo actually took the initiative and rushed towards the evil ghost. The water blade kept cutting the evil spirit's body, and bright red blood continued to flow out. Makomo realized that this level of attack did not seem to be able to effectively harm the evil spirit. The evil ghost opened his eyes after experiencing the initial pain, with a touch of painful joy on his face. He saw that the wound cut by Makomo was slowly healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. He reached out to grab Makomo's weapon, to snatch it away. Just as the evil ghost tightened his grip on the soft sword with his bloody hand, it seemed that he would be able to take control of the sword in the next second. At this moment, the power from the knife became smaller, white airflow began to appear on Makomo's body, and she used a new breath. Makomo used the third style of breath of speed with his fingertips to quickly dodge back. Looking at the girl abandoning the knife and running away, a smile of success appeared on the evil ghost's face. "Do you want to escape, kid? Have you ever asked me if I said yes?" But Makomo had a sympathetic smile on his face. 3, 2, 1. Makomo counted the numbers softly, and the demon who was running toward her with the knife suddenly stiffened, with disbelief on his face. He dropped Makomo's knife, knelt on the ground and pinched his neck fiercely. The veins on his forehead popped out, his brain began to feel dizzy, and the healed wounds were now in a festering state. "Damn kid, what did you put on the knife?" The evil ghost's eyes were filled with bright red bloodshot eyes, and an abnormal purple light began to appear. "Of course it's wisteria. It's a poison specially used to deal with evil spirits. The dose I put on it was enough to make you lose all your fighting power. I didn't expect you to take my knife stupidly. It was all covered with wisteria flowers. Juice," Makomo said easily. The evil ghost's body is constantly festering, and the other half is constantly being rebuilt, as if it is taking this opportunity to expel all the venom from the wisteria flower. Makomo was also surprised by the recovery ability of the ghost in front of him. Just to be on the safe side, she picked up the knife and killed the evil ghost with one slash. She slowly walked to the lake and sighed, "What a scary evil ghost. Fortunately, I applied wisteria juice on it in advance." She used silk to wipe her hands that were trembling slightly from killing an evil ghost for the first time. In the open space to the east, Tomioka Gyu sheathed his sword at this time, and behind him the evil ghost slowly dissipated like quicksand. Tomioka Gyu in this world was not cowardly and fainted by evil spirits like in the other timeline. He had already seen what Gen Soda taught him about what a true strong man is, coupled with his unparalleled understanding. He simply killed the evil spirit who wanted to take his body back. He frowned and looked in the direction of the top of the mountain, realizing that something else seemed to have changed this time. He decided to change his direction and meet up with Yuankang Tai and others early. In the dense forest in the west, there are broken trees everywhere. The evil ghost holding the baseball is currently fighting Sabito at close range, and both sides are not in good condition. There was only a short section of the evil ghost's baseball bat left at this time. His body was filled with blood and there were countless small wounds on his body, but the wounds did not heal like other ghosts. Because after the beating, he no longer had any extra energy to recover his body, so he could only drag his scarred body to continue fighting with the young man in front of him. And Sabito was definitely not in a good condition at this time. His left shoulder was exposed, and there was a scratch on it. This was the fatal scratch he had just made to avoid the evil spirit, and he used his shoulder to bear it. Sabito was panting heavily at this time, and seemed a little weak in physical strength due to using too many moves, but his face showed an expression of pleasure and even excitement. He enjoyed the thrill of fighting the evil ghost. In fact, he could have killed the evil ghost long ago. He only needed to use the move taught to him by Gen Soda. He believed that the evil ghost in front of him would not be able to resist this power. But he knew he couldn't do this, because it was only the first day, and using that move took a lot of physical strength. If he used it now, he would be exhausted. Sabito didn't want to have just killed a powerful evil spirit and then die on other little devils. He clenched the handle of the knife with his right hand and looked at the evil ghost in front of him. This is the last knife to kill you. Sabito arched his body and fired it like a cannonball, twisting the blade and slashing hard at the evil spirit's neck. Brush's head flew high, with a look of disbelief on the evil ghost's face. The last thought in his mind was, why are the people related to that boy so strong? Sabito leaned against a tree and panted violently. He wiped the sweat from his head. Boom, boom, like an earthquake, Sabito felt the vibrations on the ground. A kid who was hiding behind and wanted to give Sabito a fatal blow was lifted out by a big hand. Sabito stood up in a hurry and immediately entered the fighting state. Countless horses and mud horses ran through him in his heart. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, there really is a kid. But Sabito saw the kid being lifted up by a giant blue hand. The owner of the giant hand was as big as a small mountain. Its whole body seemed to be covered with giant cyan hands. The hands on its face spread apart, revealing its yellow eyes. It looked at the frightened kid indifferently. A buzzing sound sounded. Who allowed you to come to my territory and steal my food? Yuan Kang walked for a long time humming a song, and it seemed too peaceful along the way. For a time, he thought he had found a road where no ghost had ever come before. And what surprised him was that not only were there ghosts, but even humans, including Minamoto Soda, were not encountered along the way. He longed to meet the young man named Kaigaku. Don't let him meet him this time, otherwise he would suffer the same consequences. At this time, Minamoto Soda came to a forest, with neat white trees growing on both sides, and in the middle was a slightly crowded path made of dirt. Gen Soda stopped. He was still humming softly, but the muscles in his body began to tighten. He slowly moved his hand to the handle of the knife, because he felt a hint of danger here. No, more than a hint, he felt that there seemed to be countless dangers in the woods. The sound of violent and lengthy breathing resounded in this space, like a powerful exhaust fan. Gen Soda seemed to be sucking all the air in this space into his lungs. The next moment he pressed the handle of the knife, and a breath several times that of Makomo was triggered. The white airflow around Gen Soda continued to surround him, as if he was about to draw the knife and rush into the dense forest at the next moment. Mukago, who was given the title of Shitatsu No. 5, looked at the young man drawing the sword in front of him with interest. He did not expect that the other man had such high courage. Is this because he knew that there are tigers in the mountains and preferred to go to the Tiger Mountains? Is the recruitment threshold for the Demon Slayer Corps so high now? During the period when Mukago became a ghost, countless people and ghost swordsmen died in his mouth. Now, except for the pillars that are a little scared, he thinks he is invincible. At this moment, Minamoto Soda made him feel more dangerous than ever before, and he decided to reward the boy with a decent death after catching him. He would eat all the boy's corpse. Gen Soda didn't know the complicated thoughts of the ghost inside. Breath of Speed 3 Shapes fingertip moment. Like a falling meteor, Yuan Soda suddenly rushed towards the rear, and he actually ran away. Gen Soda considers himself a character who knows the current affairs and is a hero. He found that there seemed to be multiple evil spirits in the woods, and he decided to do something. Escape. The wisdom of his ancestors told him that the last of the 36 strategies definitely made sense. Gen Soda quickly ran away in the opposite direction. He decided not to confront them head-on, but to defeat them one by one when he had the opportunity. At this time, thick vines quickly rose from the ground, while the remaining ones were like lurking poisonous snakes wrapped around the surrounding trees, giving off a dangerous atmosphere. Vampire spell Poison Ivy imprisonment. These vines seemed to have their own consciousness under the control of Shishin Wu. They spread around like a gust of wind, forming a huge network structure. The vines are wrapped with small and sharp thorns, letting people know what kind of harm will happen to anyone who touches this cage. Just like an invitation, the invited person has no ability to actively escape from this place. Shishin Wu pressed his hands on the ground. If it weren't for his quick reaction, the handsome boy would have escaped. As if he was being played, Mukago was filled with anger and used his vampire technique without thinking. Go, kill him, Mukago called out to his men, and one figure after another came out of the woods. A group of evil ghosts gathered here. They were dressed in rags and holding various kinds of things in their hands, arms. Some were holding a dagger, some were holding axes, and what was even more terrifying was a one-eyed ghost standing behind them holding a bow and arrow. Gensoda stood in front of the vines, watching the mucus-covered ground fall to the ground and a puff of smoke flying up. As he expected, the vines were poisonous, so he couldn't escape anymore. He didn't want to use his own. The body tries to fight the venom. In that case, Gensoda turned around and his arms began to expand. He seemed to flash to the evil ghost holding a knife at the front, and slashed out with one strike. Breath of speed shape of one broken thorn. The blade of the sword passed over the fragile neck of the evil spirit, and the remaining evil spirits suddenly became nervous. They were afraid that it would be their turn next, but they did not pay much attention to the evil spirit that Minamoto Soda killed with one sword. Much compassion. As if by a miracle, the evil ghost whose head was severed was not dead. His head gradually grew out. Seeing this sudden change, Yuan Kang was horrified. He had never seen an evil ghost with such tenacious vitality. Gensauda quickly retreated away from the evil spirit who had cut off his head but was still alive. This time, the pressure in his heart doubled. Because in his cognition, the weaknesses of all evil ghosts are the sun and the head. The only ones that can survive if their heads are cut off are Muzan, the Ghost King, and the powerful evil ghosts on the top string. Did it hit the winding string here? Yuan Kang was too surprised. He looked at the thin evil ghost, trying to detect a hint of the aura of a superior person in him, but unfortunately, his eyes were almost full of flowers and he couldn't see where it looked like it had a string. But at this time, Gensauda suddenly noticed that there seemed to be a tumor on its right arm. Yuan Soda narrowed his eyes, and he seemed to realize something. Is it a special vampire technique? That must be it. The sound of breathing sounded again. After using it a lot, Yuan Kangta seemed to have a deeper understanding of the breathing method. He felt that this thing was like a skill and could not be used unless it was turned on. However, he found that he seemed to be able to maintain the entrance when he was unconscious. This state of breathing. He rolled his neck, thinking that after this battle he must learn the technique of normalized breathing. Just like there must be enlightenment before a war, Minamoto Soda has already realized enough benefits before the war officially begins. The sound of howling wind passed by in an instant. This time Gensauda aimed at his shoulder, and cut off his head and right arm with one strike. Ultimate sword technique 1 cut to cut 2. The evil ghost's thin body was split in two from the right side, and he still had an incredible expression on his face before he died. He thought that his vampire skills would not be recognized by others, but he did not expect the intelligence of the young man in front of him. You can see at a glance why it can beheaded without dying. Vampire magic flesh transfer. This seemingly useless vampire technique allows him to transfer his brain to another location within a day, allowing ghost swordsmen who are unfamiliar with it to suffer a big loss for the first time. But what it encountered was Gensoda, the founder of Breath of Speed. The breath method that represented the speed was suitable for assassination, so that this weak ghost could not even make a single move in his hands. Its body gradually fell into pieces, leaving behind black beads. Who's coming next? Yuan Kang Tai's quiet voice sounded. To the evil spirits, it sounds like the deadliest taunt. Mukago's face turned ugly when he saw that his substitute evil ghost, who was said to have 2 immortal lives, was killed so easily by the young man in front of him. And when he heard Minamoto Soda's sarcastic words, he felt even worse. In fact, Mukago was well prepared this time. He used the vampire technique that could create thin films under his hands to easily pass through the wisteria forest that was harmful to them. Then a dozen of them lurked in the mountains, trying to kill all the next batch of fresh blood who were about to join the Demon Slayer Corps. Go down the mountain and kill the security team and the two girls at the foot of the mountain. Their plan was well thought out, and they were doing pretty well until they met the boy in front of them. After killing 80% of the people, they met a tough opponent, Minamoto Soda. At first, Mukago didn't take the boy seriously. He only became interested in him after hearing from his own men that he had killed 2 of his other men. But the current situation obviously makes him unhappy. His blood ghost technique is so powerful that he is simply born to surround and kill. It's just that the shortcomings make him intolerable. He needs to keep releasing his vampire magic and cannot move. Therefore, among all the subordinates, he has conquered the most younger brothers. He needs enough combat power to quickly kill the surrounded objects while he is there. Jingzan, Kangtai, you two go over and try the water. Xuanai, prepare your bow and arrow from behind and shoot him. Mukago spoke out, motioning for his other 2 subordinates to come forward. Upon hearing their leader's instructions, the 2 ghosts holding the dagger and the ghost holding the axe began to run. One of them even used all 4 limbs to rush towards the boy. Kawami, with one eye behind him, began to twist his bow and set an arrow. A bloody eye brought Minamoto Soda's figure into his field of vision. He adjusted the bow and arrow and began to aim, hoping to kill him with one blow. Gensauda looked at the 2 ghosts running towards him without any panic. A touch of water condensed on his blade. The blade turned blue again at this moment, and the sound of water began to appear, like a rushing river. Water breath 1 type water cut. An evil ghost was caught off guard and was slashed in the waist, easily splitting him in 2. The evil ghost that was moving forward on all 4s jumped down and dodged the knife. A look of pain appeared on the face of the chopped evil ghost. He stopped moving forward and turned to repair his body. Another evil spirit threw the axe it was holding at Gensauda, then jumped up high and pounced on him. Minamoto Soda raised his sword and chopped the axe in half from the middle. This kind of weapon made of ordinary materials was simply not good enough in front of his high-end version of Nichiren blades. The evil spirit in the sky was about to pounce down. Gensauda's lungs bulged slightly and he struck 3 times quickly. Breath of water 4 type 3 cuts of flowing water. The evil ghost's ferocious expression suddenly froze on his face, and was broken into 4 parts by Gensauda's moves. Seeing the death of his companion, the other evil ghost did not flinch. Instead, he continued to charge forward after repairing his body. Before he turned into a ghost, Jing was really a gangster who collected protection fees on the streets. He was a partner with the recently deceased Kangtai. They often collected protection fees on the streets and cursed the vendors who had no money to pay. They also had fights with other gangs to seize territory, and it was at that time that they met Mukago, who was in trouble. Mukago, who should have killed them casually, took into account his pleading and gave him and Kangtai a little blood to turn them into ghosts. After becoming ghosts, they became more vicious and killed other gang members. After killing them all, they started killing each other all over the place with Mukago. He stabbed the sharp dagger into Yuan Soda's body, while the other sharp claw clawed at his abdomen. He wanted to see how Yuan Soda made a choice. Gen Soda watched the evil ghost that did not escape rush towards him. He did not panic, but his figure kept flickering. He was not afraid of the evil ghost in front of him who looked like a gangster. His tense nerves told him the evil spirit that has been targeting him from behind is very scary. It was very likely that one arrow would make him incapacitated, so he kept dealing with the evil ghost in front of him in order to avoid the hidden arrows from behind. And seeing that Yuan Soda, who was so brave just now, was actually constantly dodging his attacks, this made his weak psychology greatly satisfied. He thought that Yuan Soda was afraid of his attacks. He laughed crazily. "Why, you coward, don't you even dare to fight me?" He waved his hand casually, and his claws made a sound in the air. "Just run away, don't wait for me to catch you, or I will cut you into pieces." "Ha ha 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 ha, boss, did you see that this kid is afraid of me?" Although Minamoto Soda could not clearly see the movements of the evil ghost holding a bow and arrow behind him, at this moment, he clearly felt that the sense of danger was weakening. So he swung the knife without hesitation. Breath of speed shape of one broken thorn. A bloodline suddenly appeared on the head of the evil spirit named Jingzan. He seemed to have not noticed it and continued to chatter, "Come on, fight me, don't continue to run away and be a coward." The evil spirit looked at Gensauda in disbelief. With a snap sound, the evil ghost's body broke into two pieces, fell to the ground and slowly dissipated. It's so noisy, Yuan Kang said lightly, who had been paying attention to the bow ghost, did not listen carefully to what the evil ghost was saying. All his attention was on his own safety. It was difficult for the evil ghost holding a dagger to bring him any crisis. At this time, a whistling bow and arrow pierced the air and shot towards Gensauda. Clang, the tip of the knife came into contact with the bow and arrow, producing a huge sound of metal and stone colliding. Gensauda's hand shook slightly. He had no way to avoid the arrow, and his flaw was exposed the moment he made the cut. The evil ghost holding the bow and arrow noticed that he was frozen for a moment. At this time, he had no way to dodge and could only catch the arrow. We can't be passive anymore, Yuan Soda thought to himself. Kawami, who was standing behind, shot an arrow and wanted to continue looking for Gensauda. Although the arrow just now did not achieve the result he wanted, he was not in a hurry. His arrows were also laced with poison from the vines, which would turn him into pus and blood within a few hours once it came into contact with Gensauda. While taking aim, he found that the boy's figure had disappeared. A flash of alarm appeared in his heart. It was an instinctive panic. He continued to pull the bow and arrow, trying to carefully search for the figure, but he was shocked to find that his bow was broken. A Nichiren blade was inserted straight into the tree next to him. The blade reflected Kawami's nervous face, and a neat cut appeared in the middle of the iron bow and arrow. Before Chuan Hai could realize what was happening, the boy he was targeting appeared in front of him with blood all over him. In an instant, Chuan Hai met the boy's eyes. Indifferent and ruthless, like the god of death from hell. Chuan Hai was suddenly frightened by the boy's eyes. He didn't see how the boy appeared in front of him, as if a few frames had been cut out of the video. As soon as he heard the howling wind, the young man came to him. But Xuanai quickly changed his mentality. Without the bow and arrow, he still had his own body. As an excellent archer, his physical strength was also extremely strong. Chuan Hai punched the boy with traces of blood on his body, and he smelled the delicious aroma on his body. He immediately realized that the young man had a special physique that was said to be enough to eat 100 people. Kawami's expression became crazy, hoping to devour Gensauda's flesh and blood. The blood phagocytosis engraved in his cells made him lose his mind. With a crisp sound of clang, Chuan Hai's crazy face suddenly stopped, and his head fell straight down. Yuan Kangta took out his sword, and this sword seemed particularly cruel. He cut off Chuan Hai's head with one blow. He swung the sword for a blood shock. The blade was as cold as water, and it didn't look like a fierce battle at all. Gensauda glanced at the evil ghost who was slowly disappearing. Didn't you feel great about coming just now? Why don't you continue coming? Mukago on the side was horrified when he saw that Yuan Soeng had broken through too easily. He immediately realized that this person seemed to have pillar-like strength. This greatly exceeded his expectations. In his opinion, the people who come to participate in the selection are at most entry level, otherwise they would not come here. He misjudged Gensauda's strength, because he is not suitable for two people to fight against each other. His strong point is his blood ghost technique. As long as he brings a sufficient number of imps, he can surround and kill others wantonly and make himself invincible. He quietly put away the vines surrounding the outside, because there was no need to prevent the boy from escaping at this time. What he needs is to think about how to escape from here. Looking at his companions who died one by one, Mukago felt no emotion at all. They were just batteries that could be replaced at will. After they died, they would be recruited again. There was no need for such cannon fodder. Mukago began to escape, and while escaping, he did not forget to use the remaining demons. You hold him back, I'll deal with his companions first, and then join you. At this time, a huge roar sounded, as if a hill was moving. Mukago was happy when he heard this voice. He knew that one of their companions was imprisoned in this mountain, and his name seemed to be Tioni. The opponent's strength was comparable to his, but he did not participate in the battle because he was trapped here, and Tioni had no idea how many fresh humans he had eaten during his time here. His strength will definitely increase greatly, if he and I can join forces. Mukago decided to run away in that direction. Minamoto Soda also heard the loud noise. He knew that this might be Sabito and the others in trouble. He looked back at Mukago, who was about to escape. He frowned. The vines outside had been retracted, which meant that this was not the evil ghost's trap. He didn't know why the evil ghost who looked so powerful escaped. That's right. In a flash of inspiration, Yuan Soda noticed the details that he had not noticed. When he flew here, he found the evil ghost's hand pressed to the ground and unable to move. It seems that this is the limitation of the evil ghost. You have to catch up with him quickly and kill him, otherwise you won't have such a good opportunity next time. He turned to watch Mukago running towards the place where the sound came from. We can't let him escape there. Sabito and the others seemed to be fighting evil spirits there too. Thinking of this, General Soda looked at the ordinary evil ghost in front of him who was blocking his madness. His body, which had just been slightly injured due to overuse, exploded at once. Breath of Speed Shape of Wuzanyu Duenkong. A new move was randomly used by Yuan Kangta. If Master Linlong were here, he would definitely be shocked by Yuan Kangtai. He didn't know that Yuan Kangtai casually created another move with huge lethality. The evil ghost standing in a row trying to block Gensauda couldn't feel what was happening. A stream of light passed by, and all the evil ghosts in the row had their heads cut off. Their figures slowly dissipated, and they died without pain. Gensauda casually packed up the black beads and hurried to the place where Mukago escaped. In dense forest, Sabito spat out a mouthful of blood on the ground. His forehead was covered with sweat. There were countless small scars on his body, and one arm hung down weakly. A big hand suddenly swung towards Sabito, as if he was going to kill Sabito, who had lost his strength. At this time, Tomioka Giyu used the fourth form of water breathing, Wave of Strike, to cut off Tioni's outstretched blue hand. Makomo saw the right moment and grabbed Sabito's body and placed him on the tree. The forest full of trees seemed to have been cut down, with broken branches and trunks everywhere. Next to it was the oppressive mountain like Tioni, which laughed unbridled. Linlong bastard has locked me up for so long. Why does he still send his students here to die every year? You are the 12th, 13th, and 14th ones who will be eaten by me. Tioni pointed at the three Sabitos with a red-nailed finger. I will kill all his apprentices. The three people on the side were extremely angry. When Sabito met Tioni at first, he felt that its huge body was invincible, so he decided to leave here to join his junior brothers, and wait until there were more people to kill the evil ghost. But he knew from the evil ghost's mouth that it was the evil ghost that had been killing Master Linlong's disciples. Furious, he rushed forward desperately, but there was a big gap between him and the evil ghost. And he had already experienced a fierce battle and could not release the breath of thunder that Gensauda gave him. But at this time, Tomioka Giyu and Makomo heard the noise and rushed over. They also experienced a fierce battle like Sabito. Even if they were extremely angry, they could not kill this evil ghost because its regeneration ability was too strong and its unparalleled defense made it impossible for the three of them to kill it. Remove its head. Tomioka Giyu said to the back. Makomo, you take Sabito to the top of the mountain to find Soda and tell him what happened here. I will hold him back first, and you leave quickly. Tomioka Giyu's body was already wet with sweat. He had been fighting for a long time. He even used the eighth form that he was familiar with, but was interrupted by Tioni. Now he doesn't have much strength anymore and can only pray to Yuan Kang. Get here too quickly. Mukago finally arrived here. When he saw Tioni surrounding and killing three people and gaining the upper hand, he seemed particularly excited. Tioni, please help me, I am the fifth of the lower string. Let's work together to kill and devour these imps, and then we will fight together. Tomioka Giyu saw another evil ghost running towards him, and there were numbers in his eyes that he had never seen before. He felt a little suffocated. He thought of what his master said, with a touch of sadness in his heart. Master Linlong, this time we will disappoint you again. Seeing a new evil spirit join the battle, the three fell into despair. Sabito struggled to stand up. Even if he died, he would die with his junior brothers. He could still lift the knife, and he wanted to try again to see if he could cut off Tioni's head and avenge the deaths of his senior brothers. There was a hint of purple in Sabito's eyes, when he was about to fight for his life. A white figure appeared in their field of vision with endless light. It was like a strong wind blowing, rushing down with unparalleled sword power. The white blade was aimed directly at Mukago's neck, trying to chop off his head with one blow. The huge power seemed to carry endless anger, slashing at Mukago with a white sword light. But unexpectedly, it was blocked by countless blue hands, and Nichiren blades cut off countless arms, but it still didn't stop it from pulling Mukago away. Tioni rescued Mukago, although he didn't know why he looked so embarrassed as a subordinate. Cyan arms held Mukago next to him. Soda. After Makomo saw that the white figure was Gensoda, her heart that had been holding on was finally relieved. For a moment, she felt as if she had someone to rely on. Tomioka Gyu and Sabito finally had a glimmer of hope in their hearts when they saw Gensoda coming. They know Minamoto Soda's strength, and what Minamoto Soda can do that they can't do. Before leaving, Master Linlong called the three of them to a place and told them that if they encountered a life-and-death crisis during the trial and they were unable to resist it themselves, they should seek help from their junior brother. At that time, Sabito and Gyu felt that their master was looking down on them. Only Makomo nodded. They did not expect that they would soon encounter an unsolvable death crisis. At this time, Minamoto Soda came to them like falling from the sky. Gensoda was not angry that he failed to kill Mukago with one knife. Seeing Tomioka Gyu being attacked, Gensoda flashed his sword and cut off Tomioka Gyu's arm that was constantly entangled, and helped him to Makomo where they stood, on the tree. Sorry, I'm late. I encountered a dozen evil ghosts on the mountain, and it took a little effort to deal with them. Gensoda turned to look at the three of them. Only Makomo is in better shape now because she is not the main force against Tioni. Fugong Gyu gasped for breath, obviously he had no energy left. And Sabito's condition is even worse. He is covered in injuries and bleeding continuously. He is still conscious and determined. Soda, are you okay? There were some tears on Makomo's face, which were tears shed by Tioni when they humiliated their master, Makomo. She looked at Minamoto Soda, who was covered in blood, and was a little worried about his state. Most of them are not my blood. Don't worry, leave the next battlefield to me. Makomo, you take Brother Sabito and take a rest. I will take Brother Gyu and kill the two evil spirits below. Gensoda turned to look at Tioni. Tioni looked at the chattering people without interrupting them. It was also recovering the arm that had been chopped off by Gensoda. But the arrival of Minamoto Soda made him feel a little bad. This boy was actually chasing Shitohoshi behind him and killing all his men. Tioni raised Gensoda's danger level to another level. It asked Mukago from behind, is this boy really as strong as he says? Mukago was still thinking about the fatal knife and seemed a little frightened. He may be stronger than you think. His breathing method can make him very fast. We let him find the opportunity due to our carelessness, and all my men were killed. But this time we joined forces. I will cooperate with you from behind. You just need to protect me. Mukago knelt on one knee, pressed his hands on the ground, and released his vampire technique. Vampire spell poison ivy imprisonment. Countless vines grew wildly, gradually covering the place. The rest is up to you. After killing these 4, 3 will be yours. I only want the boy. Tioni glanced at him and said, I can only give you that girl. The boy is obviously stronger and can make me stronger. Mukago felt guilty. Okay, then I'll do what you said. Girls can be girls, it's better than nothing. Tioni's arm rebounded and then shot out suddenly, rushing towards the 3 people on the tree trunk like countless green vipers. Gensoda turned to Makomo and said, you should avoid him, Gyu and I are about to get involved. Gensoda held the handle of the knife and chopped off all the arms that Tioni rushed towards, blood spurting out. They ran towards Tioni. On the way, Tomioka Gyu told Gensoda, his arms can be regenerated infinitely, so it is useless to cut off more. We must cut off his head. Gensoda cut off an arm again and nodded. I know, I will look for opportunities. There was a shaking sound from the ground, and countless arms and venomous vines suddenly appeared, seeming to pierce them. Gensoda and Tomioka Gyu jumped high to avoid the attacks from the 2 evil spirits. At this moment, Gensoda suddenly shouted, throw the knife. Tomioka Gyu immediately understood what he meant. He threw the knife in the direction of Tioni forcefully, and he fell towards the 5th place of the lower string. Gensoda accurately stepped on the knife thrown by Tomioka Gyu in the air. He jumped up again and slashed towards Tioni's head. Water breath 1 type water cut. The knife struck Tioni's head like a rushing river, and a trace of panic appeared on Tioni's face. At this moment, a huge amount of vines appeared on its neck, protecting it like a shield. Vampire spell poison ivy imprisonment. Mukago, who was kneeling behind Tioni, exerted its strength. It summoned countless vines around Tioni's neck to act as a defense for it. The blade of Minamoto Soda's sword slashing at Tioni was entangled in countless vines, wasting a lot of power. He knew that this sword could not cut off its head. But he was not willing to let it end like this, because there might not be such a good opportunity next time. Giyu also threw his knife because he believed him. If the knife did not work, Giyu would probably be killed by Tioni with a punch. Gensoda closed his eyes, and the blue water disappeared, replaced by a sharp purple light. A rumble sounded in the sky, making it difficult to tell whether the thunder came from the sky or from the boy. Purple wrapped around Gensoda's Nichiren blades, and the surging purple energy continued to emerge until it filled the entire blade. Destructive thunder and lightning continuously struck the green vines, and the vines continued to wither and turn into ashes. The blade broke through the protective layer made of vines and then rushed towards Tioni's neck with an indomitable momentum. Breath of thunder mixed domain god of punishment thunder. A violent sound exploded, like thunder in the sky. The moment Nichiren blades came into contact with Tioni, Tioni's head was blown to pieces and turned into countless bloody fragments scattered around. The moment Tioni finally disappeared was filled with disbelief. How could he break through my defense? How could he? No, no, no. Tioni's body kept disappearing, and in the last moment of his life, he thought of the memory before he turned into a ghost. That night, as a child, he ate the brother he loved most. When he woke up, he felt endless darkness surrounding him. From then on, no one held his hand again. Gensoda used the remaining power of his sword to chop off Mukago's head, showing no mercy in his horrified eyes. Mukago was originally not suitable for close combat. Without his companions, he did not have much ability to resist. Makomo helped Sabito come over. She handed Sabito to Tomioka Giyu and then hugged the powerless Gensoda. She whispered to Gensoda, "I feel the sadness in Tioni." Minamoto Soda glanced at Tioni's disappearing body and nodded. Presumably he was a young man who worked hard before. I hope he won't have to be a ghost in his next life and become a human being to live a good life. As if he felt what Minamoto Soda said, Tioni's last body also disappeared. In his last memory, he seemed to see his brother. He chased after him hard and ran to the sun to hold his brother's hand. "Brother, I'm afraid of the dark. I really can't do anything about you, you are always so timid." Gensoda gasped violently due to the exhaustion. He suddenly felt that the fog was filling his eyes, and he seemed to see more than 10 figures with fox masks on their waists, waving to him and saying goodbye to them. "Did you see it too, Soda?" Makomo said softly. Gensoda raised his head. "Yes, we promised Master to go back together, and now we have done it." The four of them stood with their backs against the big tree, the morning light shining on the ground through the sparse clouds, the breeze gently blowing on everyone's face, and everyone's face was filled with the joy of surviving the disaster. 7 days later, halfway up Tengshi Mountain, the wisteria flowers were still in full bloom, shining brightly under the sunlight. The four of them leaned against the red pillars, waiting to see if anyone else would come down the mountain. Unfortunately, no one came down except Kaigaku, who looked like he had no scars on his body. Only 5 of them passed the test this time. Kaigaku was particularly unhappy when he saw that Gensoda and the others had survived. He had been hiding in the cave for the past 7 days. When he was hungry, he would go out to find some food instead of going out to fight with others. He unexpectedly survived at the end. But the clothes on his body looked particularly tattered, and his green eyes dimmed a lot at this time. He actually survived. Makomo leaned next to Gensoda and whispered. Gensoda glanced at Kaigaku, who was completely intact, and knew that he might not have had any battles with ghosts in the past 7 days, but the rules were like this, and he couldn't say anything. It was just that it was not worth it for the teenagers who were killed by the lower string. He responded calmly. "No way, that's the requirement. Good luck is also part of strength." 2 girls wearing wisteria-colored kimonos came out. Maybe it was because they passed the exam, but there was a little more joy in their originally flat voices. "Congratulations to everyone who passed the selection. Everyone, just be okay. At this time, an untimely voice sounded, breaking what the two were talking about. Where is my sword? Kaigaku said impatiently. Please don't be anxious. Let's distribute the team uniforms first, measure your sizes, and then engrave your class on them. The white girl said. Then the black girl spoke. There are 10 classes in total. The classes are divided into A, B, C and D according to the structure of the heavenly stems. And you guys have just passed the competition and are the last way. You can use it to kill evil ghosts. To raise the class. After saying this, she clapped her hands, and several birds hovering in the sky swooped down and stood on their shoulders. Sabito and Tomioka Gyu have a black crow on their shoulders, Kaigaku's is also a crow, and Makomo has a cuckoo on his shoulders. Minamoto Soda's is even more special. All the while, a goshawk landed on his shoulder. He was an extraordinary warrior, and at first glance, he was different from others. From now on, there will be crows following you. They are responsible for sending you tasks and are mainly used for communication. Kaigaku waved away the crow standing on his shoulder impatiently. He walked towards the two of them and held the black girl's hair. What I want is not a crow or a team uniform. What I want is it's a sword, it's Nichiren blades, do you know that? At this time, another voice sounded, not loud but with an unmistakable tone. I will give you 3 seconds to take your hands away from the person's head. When the time is up, I will see your hands lying around again. Then don't ask for this hand. Gensoda stretched out his hand and pressed the handle of the knife. It's strange to say that it was obviously the second meeting, but Gensoda felt disgust in Kaigaku. He clearly felt that he hated this person and felt a sense of alienation in him. It seems that this person lives in this world just for himself. Kaigaku looked at Gensoda's hand holding down the Nichiren blades he had longed for. His face twitched, and he remembered the finger he broke before going up the mountain, so he took his hand away. But he still refused to be outdone. When will my Nichiren blades arrive? If there are no special swords to use, who will join your Demon Slayer team? The black-haired girl didn't comment on their behavior. She pulled away the purple cloth on the table, exposing pieces of ore of various shapes. Gensoda saw at a glance that their materials were very similar to what he saw in the Akaishi cave. He knew that this was orangutan crimson ore, which could be used to create Nichiren blades. The girl spoke. Next, please choose a piece of ore. You can choose the steel to protect your own knife and forge it. Sabito and the others came forward and looked at the rocks of different sizes on the table. They couldn't help but feel a little headache. They had never seen this thing before, so naturally they didn't know how to choose. Gensoda came over, stood next to Makomo, took out a piece and handed it to Makomo. Just this one. There is this kind of ore in the mountains near my home. I know which kind has the highest content and is the most suitable for making knives. Makomo covered his mouth with disbelief written all over his face. Soda can actually do this. It's really amazing. Gensoda, who was a little embarrassed by the praise, continued to pick 2 pieces and handed them to the 2 people behind him. Kaigaku reluctantly pointed to one piece in his envious eyes. I knew I had to choose this one even if you didn't tell me. Kaigaku reached out and held down the stone. Even though he was a favor to General Soda, he was unwilling to say thank you. Damn it, why are you so shameless? Gensoda rolled up his sleeves as if to give him some color. Sabito grabbed him and said, forget it, we are all part of the same organization now, just treat it like feeding a dog. After selecting the ore, Nichiren blades will be delivered to you in the 10th to 15th day. In an empty house, a man dressed in off-white clothes knelt down in the middle of the room, with a crow standing on his hand. His voice was gentle and kind. That's it. 5 people survived. It's really outstanding. Quote. The tone was full of appreciation. I have more children. I wonder what kind of swordsman they can become. Especially the child who killed the lower string. I am really surprised. Biao Ya, do you think I should raise his rank a little higher? Then he shook his head slightly. You're right, you can't push too hard. Just let him practice like this. I believe he will surprise everyone in the near future. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.